Hello everybody, today I'm going to do a summer TBR list. I don't usually do these because I don't tend to plan what I read because I just sort of go to my bookshelves and pick up whatever I fancy reading, and I find that TBRs kind of put pressure on me to read, and I don't really like that because it makes me not read. But I've sort of picked up 4, maybe 5 books that I want to read this summer. The first 2 books are books that I'm reading for my dissertation. One of them I've already started and another one I'm yet to start. The first one is The Graveyard Book by Neil Gaiman. It's kind of a cool reworking of The Jungle Book about this kid called Nobody Owens whose parents are brutally murdered at the beginning of the novel. And these spirits adopt him in a graveyard and look after him. It's kind of like a buildings romance. It's kind of him growing up with these spirits, but it's really good so far. I've only read one chapter, but it's really dark and quite chilling, and my dissertation's kind of on death and the representation of death in different texts, I guess. It's very, very early stages at the moment and it might change, but we'll go with it. The second book I'm reading for my dissertation is Grief is the Thing with Feathers by Max Porter. I've heard a lot of good things about this book. I believe it's Max Porter's sort of debut novella thing. It's not very long. And it's basically following the story of this guy and his 2 sons, I think. It's 2 sons? Yeah. And their journey with grief and the presence of this crow that sort of personifies grief and death in their household. It's based a lot on Ted Hughes' poetry. I do have an anthology of Ted Hughes' poetry coming in the post, but it's not arrived yet, so I will be reading that as well. That's the third kind of book that I'm gonna read for my dissertation, so that I can get a tighter grasp on what Porter is trying to say in this novel, because somebody on Instagram, when I posted a picture of this book, suggested that I read some Ted Hughes poetry before I went into it. So I'm going to do that. The next 2 books are really my leisure reading books. One of them I got from the library, which is kind of cool because it's called Public Library by Ali Smith. And it's just a collection of short stories. I've never read any Ali Smith, but I've heard loads of people raving about her. It's all about reading and our connection with books and why we love reading and things like that. And I kind of felt like reading it like going into my final year. Sometimes you get those moments when you're doing your degree. You think, why in the world did I choose to study English? Why do I love books anymore? You've got so much reading to do for classes that you don't read for pleasure, and it's just like, why? You end up kind of hating reading. I wrote a blog post about it actually a while back, so I'll link that in the description. But this, I feel like it will just remind me why books are amazing, why they're important, and just sort of give me that nice little kick into my final year. The last book is actually non-fiction. I don't read a lot of non-fiction, but this one really grabbed me. It's called The Voices Within, and it's by Charles Fernio, I think that's how you pronounce it, correct me if I'm wrong. And it's basically all about why we talk to ourselves, and I am someone who talks to themselves frequently. I'm actually talking to myself right now. I mean, there's nobody in front of me, it's just a camera. Obviously I'm projecting to an audience, but there's actually nobody here. So I do an awful lot of talking to myself as a kind of YouTuber person, and as a normal human being that just says a lot of things to myself. I talk to myself in the form of notes, I talk to myself in the form of like walking around the house and listing the things I have to do out loud, or like commentating random things and commenting to myself. I spent a lot of time on my own in sixth form because everybody in my house, like all my parents worked, both my parents worked, all my parents, I have 2 parents, both my parents worked and my brother was at university, so I didn't really have a lot of people in the house, so I kind of talked to myself a lot, and this is really interesting to me, so I can't wait to read this one, and it'll be nice to get some non-fiction into my reading habits. Okay, so that's all of them. There's not very many, 4/5 when the Ted Hughes anthology comes through, but I like to make my reading goals achievable because otherwise I start to resent them. Let me know down in the comments if you have any books that you think would be useful for me in my dissertation. If anything pops to your head instantly that portrays death in an interesting way, then please do let me know. I'll put that blog link in the description for you, the one where I talk about sort of how you get disenchanted with reading sometimes during your literature degree. I'll put that in the description. I will see you again soon.